So that's a little bit about the corrupt Bible that they have put out to support their false doctrines. The last thing I want to talk about is just wickedness within the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves. You would expect that an organization claiming to be the one true church on this earth, representing God directly, having direct guidance from Him and preserving the purity and truth of Scripture, and representing the perfect ideal of what a New Testament church would be like, would be marked by holiness. Martin Luther certainly had that impression of Rome. He was taught to believe that Rome was the true church of God, and he believed that he was serving the one true church, and he expected to find in Rome a citadel of holiness. And he made a pilgrimage to Rome and was sent there on business on his first trip to Rome, and when he got there, he didn't find a citadel of holiness, he found a brothel. Instead of priests who were zealous for God, he found gluttons and drunkards and schemers. And he was devastated by what he found in Rome. The city, which he had greeted as holy, was a sink of iniquity. Its very priests were openly infidel and scoffed at the services they performed. The papal courtiers were men of the most shameless lives. He was accustomed to repeat the Italian proverb, "If there is a hell, Rome is built over it." And Luther, on discovery of how wicked it was in Rome, had this to say in a letter to Pope Leo X. "The Roman Church has become the most licentious den of thieves, the most shameless of all brothels, the kingdom of sin, death, and hell." And similarly, that's what you're going to find when you're dealing with the Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jehovah's Witnesses, the only thing false prophecy and heresy can produce is wrong living and sin. We have historical hints that Charles Taze Russell could have been involved in scandalous moral behavior, and the smoke becomes a fire by the time we get to the life of their second leader, Judge Joseph Rutherford, who was known to travel with the mistress and who was a well-known drunkard. And the Watchtower today, as we saw at the very outset of this class, is running a cover-up for child sexual abuse with its two-witness rules. One of the most vile things that you could possibly imagine, that you would allow your own children to be sexually abused by adults within the church and do nothing for them. And that's what they have done for many years now. And things were so bad within the Jehovah's Witnesses in the 80s that they even confessed as much. They said, "Shocking as it is, even some who have been prominent in Jehovah's organization have succumbed to immoral practices, including homosexuality, wife swapping, and child molesting. It is to be noted also that during the past year, 36,638 individuals had to be disfellowshipped from the Christian congregation, the greater number of them for practicing immorality. Jehovah's organization must be kept clean." And most people are probably unaware that Jehovah's Witnesses are against everything, it seems like, but drinking. Jehovah's Witnesses are allowed to drink. And because it is the one vice they are allowed to indulge, there's apparently considerable alcoholism within the organization. And this goes along with what we are seeing in other cults. People are exposing the various problems of these cults online, and it's leading other people to step back and examine what they believe. And that's certainly the case with the things that we're bringing out in this class. A lot of what I've gathered has been from online resources and people that have posted things online. Here are just a few testimonies from ex-Jehovah's Witnesses about the drinking that is rife within the organization.
I remember one of the first gatherings I went to. I was invited over to a Bethelite's room. And it was a Monday night after the Watchtower study. We was watching the Monday night game. And, having beer was no big thing, or having liquor was no big thing. And so one of the guys asked us, where's the beer, guys? And he said, go, it's in the bathroom. And so I go in the bathroom and I pull back the curtain, and there is a tub of ice with a keg buried in it. And the reason why, because Bethelites used to buy it by the keg.
Both heavy drinking and drunkenness are condemned by Jehovah and will not be tolerated. Alcoholic beverages may be brought into Bethel, but must be used in moderation.
Now, Mikey, we know that it's not just Bethel that has this problem. Alcoholism is a problem throughout the entire organization. My goodness, even in Wisconsin, I mean, it was Arizona.
Arizona.
You know, I mean, this was even elders and ministerial servants giving these parties. And they would just be serving underage minors. And I mean, we're talking teenagers. And I don't mean 17, 18, 19. I'm talking like 13, 14, 15, you know, and his mom was usually the bartender.
Just a little bit, you know. So it just, Watchtower, quit trying to project that your organization is on the moral high ground, because it is not.
For me, first of all, when I was growing up, one of the number one things that we got in trouble for was drinking. And they'd bring you into the room and talk to you about how dangerous it is. And the ironic part about this is tons and tons of witnesses are alcoholics. And that's just the reality of it from my experience. And people can jump in the comments and talk whatever nonsense they want, but the reality is many, many, many witnesses are alcoholics.
Alcohol is one of the few things that they're allowed to partake in. Growing up in Nigeria, I can't even tell you when I had my first drink. I was quite young. Must have been maybe 9, 10. And I wasn't sneaking it or stealing it. I was given it by my dad.
And this was brought to light in a real way a couple of years ago when a member of the governing body was caught buying almost $1,000 of high-end scotch at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning when he should have been at the Kingdom Hall. I guess that's a good cover. He figures everybody else is at the Kingdom Hall. It's a good time to drive 25 miles from home and pick up some booze. And in this video, you will see that he's also giving advice as to the kind of Irish whiskey his wife likes the best.
I'll just go with another bottle of JMO.
You can't go wrong with it. My wife really likes that.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yep.
But not surprisingly, because of this, mental health issues are a real issue within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Even in 1975, we can quote from a health journal in Australia, the present study of 50 Jehovah's Witnesses admitted to the mental health service facilities of Western Australia suggests that members of this section of the community are more likely to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital than the general population. Furthermore, followers of the sect are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed as suffering from schizophrenia and nearly 4 times more likely from paranoid schizophrenia than the rest of the population at risk. These findings suggest that being a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses faith may be a risk factor predisposing to a schizophrenic illness. Further studies would be interesting in investigating whether pre-psychotic people are more likely to join the sect than normal people and what part, if any, membership has in bringing about such a breakdown. Well, I can tell you what brings that situation about. It's an uncertainty about salvation. People who know their Lord and who have peace with Him have a settled mind and have peace. But people who are constantly badgered about earning their own salvation and are forced to go from door to door in hopes of meeting some standard that's unrealistic will never have peace. And no wonder it causes heavy drinking and this mental stress. Well, that's a little bit about the Jehovah's Witnesses. In the next section, we're going to have an overview of what we studied about the Seventh-day Adventist and the Jehovah's Witnesses in preparation for the next test.